Very good evening, everyone. Today's session is divided into two parts. One, we would speak about innovation on the technology front, and the other, we would also speak about innovations on the process as well as the human front. Essentially, our first speaker, Mr. Venkat, would be discussing about an initiative taken by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I welcome Mr. Venkatakrishnan here. He's,
Good evening, Dr. Malini.
Thank you for joining. Yeah, you're audible, Mr. Venkat. Mr. Venkat is the Senior Program Officer with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And as you may all be aware, Mr. Bill Gates has been one of the key proponents for the need for innovations in sanitation, particularly on the technology side. We all know that sanitation is one sector where the problems have only more or less remained the same, but growing in intensity, growing in proportion, and growing in terms of ill impact. And for some reason, innovations are not really taken seed in many of the critical areas that it is absolutely essentially required. And the Reinvent the Toilet program by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is a great initiative towards that step. And we have requested Mr. Venkat, and we are grateful to him for accepting our request to come and speak to us today to share some information about what is the reason behind this program, what are the contours of this program, and what is it that we can look forward to, what is coming out of this program, and how the cities in India can take advantage of this almost, I think, a 10-year program that has been implemented. Really looking forward to learning from you, Mr. Venkat, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malini, and so I'm privileged to have this opportunity. And I would
Mr. Venkat, your voice is not very clear. Just mind adjusting it a little bit.
Is this better now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. So thanks much for this opportunity, privilege to talk in front of the esteemed guests at the meeting. Please stop me if there is any issue with the voice and I can try and adjust. So just to give a quick background, like Dr. Malini said, I head the technology commercialization portfolio at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in India, which with a focus on sanitation technology. Essentially, we are looking at what happens after the water is flushed down, the back-end water treatment, the black water treatment along with the fecal sludge and so on, and the fecal matter. So over the past 10 years, since 2010, Mr. Gates and the team have been on a mission to see how we can change this whole entire scenario of back-end treatment from what it is presently, which is almost for the last 100 years. Not much of an improvement has happened in terms of the flush toilet technology, or we call it the way water is treated once it takes the fecal matter and goes on to waste treatment plants and so on, and how we can improve it so as to have a positive impact on the lives of people, the millions and even billions of people that live across the world, mostly in the emerging economies. So as part of this, they conceived of what is called the Reinvented Toilet Challenge. Now, Reinvented Toilet is a phrase that was coined by Bill when he thought that, for the last 100 years, like I said, not much of a technology shift has happened as far as toilets are concerned. The front end has gotten better, more luxurious and so on. But the back end treatment has pretty much remained a little bit of stagnant in terms of how the whole flushing system and what happens after flush and so on is concerned. So he called for technology companies to participate. And we've had two such events actually, one in 2014 in New Delhi and one in Beijing in 2018. And both of them, the goal was to invite technology pioneers or those interested in sanitation space to come with innovative solutions that will take up the water mixed with the fecal matter, find ways to treat that the solids to harmless material that can be discharged safely, as well as the water that can be reused back for multiple purposes, even to the extent some of the inventions have taken it to the level of, you can actually go and drink that water, right? It becomes potable. So that sort of technology was innovation was being fueled through this challenge, and the foundation has spent close to, I would say, close to around $500 million over the past few years in encouraging the technology experts to come and develop these solutions. Most of them are housed within academic institutions of repute like Caltech, University of South Florida, Duke University. And the challenge was open pretty much to anyone from across the globe. And we do have commercial partners as well in India. And of course, we work with experts across the India, including ASCII, CEP, CSI, and so on, in trying to see how these solutions can really reach to the end users whom they're intended to reach. So, so there are multiple classes of products that we have designed. The main objective was to note that the whole world is not going to get fueled anytime soon. I mean, I think in India, if you look at it, maybe around 60-70% of the country still doesn't have a centralized sewerage connection. And so it's going to take time before such infrastructure gets built. And as of now, we have a lot of on-site treatment options, containment and treatment options, like septic tanks, holding tanks, and so on, which vary in the level of treatment that they offer. So, for this purpose, we came up with the reinvented toilet, which essentially collects the black water generated by households, by commercial facilities, and so on, treats them on site without the need for them to be really desludged frequently, and make sure that the solids that come out of it are harmless, nutrient-rich biosolids, which can be discharged to or given away to farmers, or for any kind of, can be discharged safely where appropriate. And the water can really be reused without harming the environment in any way. And within RT, to give you a brief, the ultimate vision of the foundation is what we call the single user reinvented toilet, which essentially means every household will have one toilet, every restroom in the household will have a toilet, which is like a household appliance, like a washing machine or something, which doesn't really have to have a plumbing connection. Pretty much people can go about their business in terms of their overall collection of the fecal matter, and the whole thing stays in a loop, gets treated, and what comes out of the restroom is really harmless material. That is the ultimate vision, and I think we hope to get there by 2030 and really scale it up by 2050 to a majority of households globally. But before that, what we have ready today as a product that can be commercialized is what we call the multi-user reinvented toilet. Here, the front end remains the same in terms of how we use it today. The toilets are still the same. The water is collected along with the sludge, along with the matter, fecal matter, and then that is treated on site. It replaces a septic tank essentially, or maybe not replace the septic tank, but replaces the treatment offered with septic tank, so that what is collected is treated on site and can be let out even into stormwater drains, for example, without the need for additional treatment. So this is part of the distributed solution that we have developed. Shibal, if you don't mind putting up that slide, maybe just I can talk through it, but for a visual understanding, that will be helpful if you can do it. Thank you. So that is one of the solutions. Then we also have, as part of the fecal septage treatment plants, we have the OmniProcessor technology, which also I briefly touch upon. Can you go to the next slide, please?
So just 1 second, Venkat, just to those who joined late. So we are talking about the reinvent the toilet is looking at treating the waste coming out of toilet at 3 points. One is right where you are using the toilet, right? In our own household, right beneath the toilet, whatever waste is coming out gets treated there itself. There is no need to move it, right? That is one part. Second is there are mobile trucks. So the desludging trucks will act as a treatment system where the wastewater gets treated there itself and is let out into the drain, and the fecal matter can go to the fecal/treatment plant, or the desludging truck becomes a complete treatment system where it treats both liquid and solid waste. And third, of course, is the fecal sludge treatment plant where the waste carried from the desludging vehicles will get treated, right? These are the 3 components. Thank you.
If you don't mind going to the next slide, please, Shibal. Yeah, the next one. 2 slides, yeah. The next one, please. Maybe the next one, sorry. Yeah, so this is covers the entire sanitation value chain, like Dr. Malini just said. So basically, you have containment happening at the point of generation of the wastewater along with the fecal matter. And then we have, if it's sewer, it probably goes through a sewer network of sewer pipes and then gets to a central STP, sewage treatment plant, where it's treated. Solids, the solids that come out of that system, maybe they're composted or they're given a secondary treatment and then disposed of. And what we have noticed here is that there isn't a complete pathogen elimination that happens, which gets into the system, gets into the soil, into water bodies, and that has a very negative impact on the healthcare of citizens. And I think there are some estimates by UNICEF and maybe, if I'm not mistaken, I think by UN and others, which put this anywhere between 5 to 7% of the GDP of the country. I think most studies, the studies are evolving constantly, but this is sort of, it has a negative impact, a significant negative impact on the productivity and the GDP of the country because of the waste not being completely treated of pathogens and being let out. So basically the three suite of products that Dr. Malini also just mentioned. The first one, the reinvented toilet, you see inside that red square there, it will address the entire issue then and there within the facility. So you treat your waste, you have stuff that is coming out of the whole system, which can be safely discharged. And then talking about mobile treatment units, I'm sorry. So these are again trucks that can go from one home, one household, one facility to another, and they take the wastewater coming out of the households, treat them. They spend around an hour and a half to treat them, and give back water that can be reused for flushing, for gardening, and so on. And the solids that remain within the truck, they are pretty much treated to a level of near pathogen elimination, without the need for further treatment, except maybe some level of a day or two of drying, if at all. But I think that is also being constantly improved. And then the third piece is what you have. You have septic tanks, households with septic tanks, facilities with septic tanks. Trucks come, sort of desludge them and take them to an FSTP. This FSTP could also be co-located with an STP, and then their thermal treatment happens, where the sludge is treated to create biosolids, which are harmless, completely free of pathogens, and water again, which can be reused for anything like flushing, gardening. It can even be let back into the system for plumbing, but obviously there are certain issues around cultural issues why people wouldn't be comfortable using that water back in the plumbing system again. But nonetheless, the whole pathogen elimination is the key, which ensures that there isn't any harm coming out of the treated outputs that come out of these systems. So these are the three suites of products, and the main focus is of course on the multi-user reinvented toilet, because we feel that has a very strong user base, an application that makes a lot of sense, especially in congested urban areas as well as in rural areas where you don't want, with high water table areas like Odisha, for example, and so on, where you don't really want waste, fecal waste getting into water, the groundwater and so on, which can lead to a lot of issues. So there are multiple technology partners that have developed these solutions, and they have licensed them to a few commercial partners in India and elsewhere. And we are working with them as we are building the market. We have about 3 pilot systems that we have done with the larger centralized FSTP, which is, our solution is called the Omni Processor. So I will cover that briefly. But yeah, if you can just, this talks about the MERT. Sorry, 2 slides before. Previous one. Yeah, thanks. So this essentially talks about the value proposition of the MERT in a nutshell. So everything in situ containment and treatment happens. And we have a few technologies that are on offer as far as the multi-user reinvented toilet or the MERT is concerned. And we have companies that are offering this as a product in the country, and we are working with a few of our channel partners in trying to get this, making an outreach into the market and trying to make sure that these can be proliferated over time. Please stop me if there are any questions, but I'll just keep progressing over the next slides. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think these probably we are all aware of in terms of how much.
No, I just have an observation to make, Venkat, with regards to this mobile treatment system. So the one that was, I think, in display during the Beijing exhibition, we were told that at the current technology can treat only if the extent of solids is to about 1 to 3%. But I think the desludging characteristics in India the composition is such that the solid content is varying from about 6% to sometimes even 12%. So I think that is that was an observation, and perhaps we are looking at having more technologies which are more suited to Indian context as well.
Absolutely, and we actually have one of our partners, Washai, have developed a mobile treatment unit which has undergone continuous improvement based on your, as you rightfully observed. So I think that has reached a stage where this really can take higher concentration of solids than what was seen back in 2018. I think that has been addressed to a great extent, but I think that's a very valid point that we need to be suitable to what you experience in Indian context. Thank you. Yeah, please, next slide. Sorry. I mean, we spoke about this. So basically, you get to conserve water on site. This puts less stress on the city or the urban localities sort of sanitation system. Whether you're sewered or, especially if you're non-sewered, then you really don't have much of a load that comes on in terms of the STP. You have a lot of treatment happening in multiple facilities where feasible within the facility itself, so that though they are pretty much self-sufficient as far as treating their waste is concerned, which is a huge sort of positive, leapfrogging many of the solutions that conventional systems might not be able to offer, because you need to have desludging, you need to take it to a centralized location and then treat it and then get it disposed of and so on. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of what we have installed in India in a school in Kerala, a couple of systems in Coimbatore, where if you look at the figure at the bottom right corner, so the level of treatment can be seen, the water coming in and then how it has been treated. So these are different technologies that our technology partners offer, right from electrochemical reactions to anaerobic digesters to thermal systems and so on. So like I said, over the past 10 years, multiple technology pioneers have participated in the challenge, have been able to put forth an idea that has been bettered by the foundation experts and then taken to the next stage, developed and brought to a stage where they can be commercialized. So I think a lot of work has been done in the last few years. And it's all culminated in a product that can really be sort of implemented in the field today. And that's where we are as we speak. And we are really looking to develop this further, refine this further, of course, with a very clear understanding that at the end of the day, it has to be commercially feasible. So the value engineering, localization for the Indian context, cost optimization efforts are underway, and we're trying to build in the first few systems so that we can travel along the cost curve and get it ready to the physics limited scale-driven costing, which what we call the should cost. So that is the effort at which we are in. But as a system, these have been proven to work in the field as well as in live sort of settings where actual people generate waste and that is being treated. Next slide, please. And this just gives you an image of how it looks like. So as you can see, there are multiple ways to set this, but these are containerized solutions. So we can actually move these around. For example, you have a school that needs this, and then for some reason 6 months, the pandemic showed us like schools are shut for some time. You want this to be used elsewhere. This can be transported as well as a treatment unit. Again, these are smaller treatment units. When you set up a much larger one, probably it has to be sitting there where it's actually being done. But it gives you the option of going with very small, it's akin to distributed energy systems. You could have a very small solar system, you could have a large solar system on your roof, right? So it's very similar to that. So basically this can be transported and it's very flexible in terms of how you want to utilize this. And the installation is very simple. It's pretty much made in the factory and brought there with very little civil work that is needed to set up this system. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, I think we can skip this. It gets into some detail for those of you who are interested. Happy to share these slides. But it talks about, it can go from 5 KLD, actually it's 5 KLD to 25 KLD. Sorry about those numbers there. And it has been done in a school in Kerala. It's been working really well. And we are actually looking to expand this into few schools in Gujarat as well, based on what they've seen. So coming to cost, again, like I said, these are I say question on cost. So just quickly, I want to address that. So as of now, we still don't have scale-driven costing for these. But I think you will be expecting a premium of 30% or so compared to conventional systems that you see, like aerobic systems that you can pretty much see in terms of most of the applications. But I think the cost factor is getting stabilized, and as we hit, say, close to 500 units or so, we expect to see a much better cost. But I can share those numbers, and they are, I would say a premium of 30 to 40% compared to conventional systems as of now. But then the level of treatment, if you look at the life cycle cost over a 10-year period, for example, the frequency of desludging goes significantly low. It's extremely low. And also in terms of what comes out of it, the water reuse, conservation of water, as well as the solids are completely pathogen free, as you can see on the right side. So the treatment quality is much, much better than most conventional systems. And so it's not really an apple to apple comparison. You take a life cycle cost and build in quality as a factor. I think it pretty much is levelized even today, if I could say that. Next slide, please. Yeah, before I go there, I see a question from Dr. Patel. Yes, it can be retrofitted to any existing system because it's just a back-end treatment unit. So I don't see a challenge in terms of how it can be retrofitted, because containment itself can be a holding tank or so, but the back-end treatment is what we offer as part of the art. I think Mr. Majumdar has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Venkatesh. I just have a query. So I was fortunate to actually attend the reInvent the toilet challenge that was organized in Hyatt Regency Hotel in 2014. So I saw some of the models that were initially developed there. One of the queries I had at that time, and I still have now 6 years down the line, I wonder if you have ever been to West Bengal and seen the arsenic treatment units dotted around the rural landscape. West Bengal has more than 5,000 arsenic removal units because of arsenic affected areas. These are all technologies, high-end technologies brought in from Europe and the US, put into place in West Bengal, given to the panchayats, and after 1 year of functioning, I think every one of them are defect. The problem is that the disposal in that particular case is the disposal of the arsenic concentrates and residues, how it's affecting groundwater, operation maintenance issues. So what I'm basically trying to point out is putting in a very advanced technological system into an Indian context without adequate support. Are you looking at that point of view, and how do you ensure sustainability of such a system? I don't know, you didn't mention about the cost. The cost, both the setting up cost as well as the operation maintenance cost, and its feasibility is. I'd be grateful if you could please spend some time on these 2 points.
Absolutely, thank you, thanks, Vijay. So I think the question, I mean, you hit the nail really in terms of how sustainable these are. If you put these systems in the field, great, they look great, they perform great there, but then the most important point for the foundation, based on all our experience in other geographies, including Africa, is that these cannot be monuments that sit there after they're installed for a year, like you rightly said. These have to function for a period of time, 10 years, a long period of time, for the lifetime, right? And so we are really focusing on making sure that the operation and maintenance can be easily streamlined with respect to what kind of training is needed and who can actually do these. I mean, we focus a lot, as you might be aware, we work with ASCII and others as well. So we focus on getting self-help groups, women self-help groups, transgender groups, and so on, to really maintain FSTPs. I think the foundation's gender team, the communities team, have been sort of championing it along with other partners. We're working with the government in making sure that operation and maintenance of any sanitation asset is planned, thought through, and it is being promoted within the right communities who can come in and use that as an opportunity to develop and so on. So I think in that context, we are also working on setting up centers of excellence and the engineering field testing platform to make sure that there is an ecosystem of overall sanitation entrepreneurs, or even when I say sanitation entrepreneurs, I mean an ecosystem of O&M providers among the community that can really come in and take this up and do it as an opportunity, and that's a focus for us as well. And we don't see a challenge in terms of this being super sophisticated, that the training cannot be sort of imbibed within self-help groups. So that has been our experience. But to answer your question, that is a prime focus for us, and we have not lost sight of that as we are trying to scale this up. With scale, we need to make sure that these can be operated and maintained appropriately for a length of time, for a long period of time, and that is one of the pillars of our commercialization strategy. But thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you.
And in terms of, like I said, the overall life cycle costing, definitely, if you look at it from a life cycle perspective, when you add treatment, when you have some weightage for the quality of treatment and so on, and if you include the real estate, the area footprint needed as well for this whole system, then I think from a life cycle perspective, we have seen apple to apple. If you normalize, it's not that far off today. And like I said, between a factor of say 1 to 1.3 or so is where we are. That's because we really don't have much of a domestic manufacturing at scale visibility yet. We are working on that the overall scale manufacturing cost optimization, which is underway, and we are looking to support and work with multiple partners as to build that initial scale. But I think with hitting 500 units or so, which shouldn't, the opportunity is just endless for any private sector player to come in. We believe that those figures can be hit, and in terms of the standard of treatment, I think that really brings in a lot of value in terms of, ultimately where you'll end up comparing a conventional system and a reinvented toilet system. But yeah, I mean, we have Dr. Malini, Professor Chari, they have been through this journey in a big way as well. In fact, for the Omni process, so I think they can add a few points in further sessions. I know I don't want to just bring them on suddenly, but I think there's a lot of experience on this.
Also, in the course, we have an exhibition of different technologies on the treatment side, and OmniProcessor would definitely feature there as well. Mr. Pankaj, are your questions answered, or would you like to ask?
No, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And my question is partially answered, but I definitely would like to see the remaining part of the presentation to keep my questions intact. But definitely what Professor Chari has actually pointed out that, the ecosystem is actually required for these kind of technologies to be promoted in India. So my question definitely would be, if you can answer in your presentation that, what are those elements of the ecosystem which is actually required. You try to answer it, but, in context of India, where we see that, as far as the government's point of view, the coverage is almost complete. So in terms of, changing the technology at this particular moment, specifically the existing septic tanks and pit toilets, how this technology can fit in with the existing system, that would be really very interesting to know. And then from where the finances will come, because we know that government has invested heavily in construction of toilet in urban and rural India. So how do you see the opportunity for investments to be there in this sector? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can address that quickly. So in terms of your point on the investment into building toilets, absolutely agree that we have built the toilet building has been phenomenal over the past 5 years, and in a sense, the open defecation sort of problem that was intended to address. So in some sense, the problem has shifted from the fields to concentrated urban localities, rural locations, and so on. So totally agree. But then, what has been sort of, I mean, there are other experts here who can add much more. But my understanding, talking to a lot of these experts, is that what has been missed to a good extent is that the treatment of what is being generated from these toilets, that has not been really addressed, and that's one of the reasons. As you can see, last 2 to 3 years of policy advocacy, a lot of organizations, including the Gates Foundation, have been working with the government at various levels, central, state, the urban local body. So it has culminated in fecal sludge management really coming in as a primary subject matter in the union budget that was announced this year. I think there's been a budget outlay for FSM of 80,000 crore. Maybe I'm seeing the number slightly off, but there's been a pretty large outlay. I've been having a few discussions through an industry partner with the Jal Jeevan minister, the Jal Shakti minister, I'm sorry, as well as the officials in MoHUA and CPHEO, to try to understand what, as part of Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0 and so on. So the net thing of all the takeaway from all of this has been that fecal sludge management is gaining a lot of attraction, importance, and there is a need that fresh investments will be needed, because the existing on-site treatment that you pointed out, a lot of places isn't serving the purpose, because that doesn't remove the pathogens that are actually the cause of harm, that what the toilet is intended to solve. We don't want that material getting into the environment, into the ecosystem, but that actually is happening. So in that context is what the foundation had set up on this as one of the primary projects that was very close to both the co-chairs as well as the entire team. And we realize that that is important as well for the government, and they are trying to see what would be the best way to address this, what kind of technologies. While we have our own views in terms of what is the most efficient, but we have been very open in first ensuring that we have alignment from the government officials as well as others that there is a need for this, which I think all of us, all the experts have agreed on. And then the next stage is to look at multiple efficient technologies to come in. And in that context, I think there is a lot of scope for new investment to come in. I don't know in terms of technicalities of retrofitting this to existing pit latrines and septic tanks, but I think since the treatment quality in a good number of these isn't meeting what you would really hope to see as as part of your FSM strategy, I think there is a scope for retrofitting and upgrading as well, as much as there are new opportunities, given that India is going to see phenomenal growth, the pandemic notwithstanding, over the next 10 years. But there are experts on this committee who can add further, but that would be my humble submission for based on what I've learned over the last 12 months, interacting with a lot of the ministry officials as well.
Mr. Venkat, I think we'll be covering Omni processor in much detail even later, but it will be great to just have a look at one or two projects that you have listed in your PPT. And then perhaps if there are any more questions, we could take that and then close the session.
Sure. So I think the pilot projects, we talked about the fecal sludge treatment plants, so the Omni processor. So Omni processor is one of the suite of products that we have that is essentially aimed at catering to fecal sludge treatment. It's a component of the FSTP. It is what we call the thermal treatment as compared to conventional biological systems. So the Omni processor itself, there are two types. One is catering to much larger cities. So we have one called one installed in the city of Vadodara and Gujarat. It's a 200 KLD system, co-located with an STP and an MSW, the solid waste management site. And it takes 50% input as solid waste and 50% as fecal septage coming to the city of Vadodara. And then we have three, the other type of Omni processor is the pyrolysis Omni processor, which uses pyrolysis to treat the solids and ensure we get 100% pathogen-free biochar and treated water, which can be reused for multiple purposes. Two of them are set up in Narsapur and Warangal, and one in the city of Vai in Maharashtra. So we have three of these plants that have been running for more than 2 years now. Through the pandemic, they have been operating. And of course, ASCI have been closely involved in trying to understand as well how they are, what change they have really brought on to the society and to the community by having these plants there. And we are hoping to build a few more of these, both as part of tender projects that we have in Andhra Pradesh and so on, as well as looking at participating in other parts of the country. And in terms of the multi-user reinvented toilet, we have a few systems deployed in Coimbatore and Kerala, and we are looking to set up a system in Gujarat as well as Delhi and Calcutta. As we speak, I think in the next 3-4 months, we will have some of these systems piloted, which are again, all of them are different multi-user reinvented toilet technologies catering to public toilets, and the one in Gujarat would be for a public school. So these are all areas where they don't have sewerage, they have an existing septic tank, but the treatment quality as identified by them is poor, and they would really like to study the difference or the positive treatment aspects that are brought out by the merge compared to existing systems. So that is the goal, and we'll study this for 6 months to a year, understand, and then have a much better understanding of how these are performing. So there's a question from Dr. Patel. So I think these are technologies that have been developed abroad, mostly in the US, and they have been licensed to Indian manufacturing partners, Indian organizations, and they will do their own value engineering from an Indian context and make sure that they are feasible from an Indian standpoint. So I think that's the goal ultimately. And we are trying to get the scale that is needed for them to really go ahead and have that visibility as they try and develop this. And we are working with multiple investment partners and so on as we try to do it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Venkat. I think you've really primed up everybody in terms of looking at futuristic technologies. And yes, cost is playing on everybody's mind. And since you are leading the commercializing segment, we are quite hopeful that we'll see many of these tested And right now on this cohort, we have representation from 15 states and Nepal and Bangladesh. And all these members will make their cities available to you whenever you want to test and pilot your work. So thank you very much once again for joining us. If you have time, do stay on for the rest of the session as well.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And just a quick point, in Bangladesh, we have a system, the OmniProcess, that's under construction in Cox's Bazar as well. So it's one of the projects done by our commercial partner, 200 KLD system. So we do have a lot of, foundation has a lot of activity in Bangladesh, but the technology as well is being built there. So I'm very hopeful that, the value of this will really come out pretty quickly over the next 6 months in terms of how they are performing. Thank you.
Fantastic to know. Thank you.
Dr. Malini, can I ask one quick question? Sujoy here.
Go ahead.
So 200 KLD system will cater to what population, Venkatesh?
This would be around 200,000 people. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you. With this, we now move to the next part of the value chain, which is the emptying transport part of the value chain. And in today's session, we will be looking at it from multiple angles. 1, in terms of regulations, 2, in terms of processes, 3, in terms of sanitation worker rights, 4, in terms of mechanization and the technologies required, and 5, in terms of how do we operationalize this, what are some good models to bring in public-private partnership and entrepreneurship. So these are some of the aspects that we will discuss. But before I invite the speakers, there are some 3 quick polls. Ravi sir, with your permission, just want to do these polls so that all of us are sort of getting into the mood of session. So Shival, can I please request you to start the first poll?
The question visible?
Yeah, the question is very simple, and unfortunately the answer is very painful. What is the number of reported deaths, and we are stressing on the word reported here, during 2016 to 20? We can stop now. Shival, you can post the result.
The result visible, ma'am, now?
No. Is it visible to everyone else?
Yes.
Okay. So Shival, you want to say anything with regard to what is the number that
the exact number of deaths due to manual scavenging is nearly 463 as per Mr. Bezwada in his
latest reports. And once again, we stress that these are the reported. And I learned from listening to Dr. Ravi earlier session that the number of sanitation workers dying due to cleaning of the sewers and septic tanks is higher than the number of soldiers who lay their lives for the country. And it's quite startling. And this is something that we wanted to start the session with so that we are already sensitized, but still just to put it in context. Shival, next poll, please. So we all know that there is a act for prohibition of employment as manual scavengers. And in 2013, the act was amended and penalty clauses have been added, mechanization has been stressed. And we wanted to understand how many people have been penalized for the 430 plus deaths which are reported. And we could have the results, Shival, that's fine. So many of you seem to think that at least someone has been penalized. I'm extremely sorry to inform you that no one has been penalized for the deaths, reported deaths of 400 as on date. And that is something that we also need to be aware of when we go forward. And the last question, please. The Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge was launched by the Ministry of Urban Development recently, and the concept would soon be integrated into Swachh Sarvekshan as well. So it's an important component of sanitation worker well-being, and we were wondering if how you would, understand that right now. Okay, Shrival, we can have the results. So the main objective of Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge is essentially on mechanization and not so much on livelihoods. It's more focused on licensing and mechanization. So this is an important component, and we urge all of you to once again have a look at the challenge and see how our cities and the states are implementing the Safai Mitra learnings. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to our guests today. We have Padma Shri Dr. Ravi Kumar, who is the National President for the Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. And we have Mr. Manohar Krishna, who is the MD of Vida. Both of them are actually crusaders in their own right. They are championing the cause of sanitation workers, championing the cause of Dalit rights. They are working towards safe working environment. They are working towards mechanization. They're working towards training, and they are working towards empowerment of the sanitation workers. During the COVID times, we know that these are the workers who've been in the forefront. And unfortunately, while we have been sitting safely in our houses, we have put them on the streets and hailed them as champions without giving them sufficient protection and the rights that they deserve. Yes, there have been incentives here and there, but these are sporadic. We have to ensure that the visibility and recognition that they've received during the COVID times continues, because memories are short. And how do we take measures to professionalize, to support them, and improve their lives is the focus of today's session. I would request Dr. Ravi to share his thoughts. He's already shared his PPT with you, and he was keen on having a free-flowing discussion where if he feels appropriate, we can take questions in between, sir, as you feel comfortable. But I'll request you to please start your speech.
Thank you, Dr. Malini. Good evening, everyone. It's a great opportunity for me to interact with all of you. Today, just I wanted to convey all of you that how the administration can get change in the lives of the people who are engaged since ages. Everybody knows that this scavenging activity in India is carried by a particular community in the country. This has been doing for the past many centuries. Only the thing is that earlier they used to do with the hands, and slow by slow, one or the other equipment is added into their hands. Now that the whole country is thinking of mechanization of the sewer cleaning activity, septic cleaning activity, all these waste management, And all these issues, when the process of mechanization is taking place, unfortunately, the upper contractual opportunity is not getting to the same people who are engaged. That means when there was no revenue generation at all, at that time, these people were given the 100% jobs, 100% opportunities. But when the mechanization is taking place, that process, the mechanization, whatever outsourcing the municipalities, municipal corporations and the Delhi jail boards, water boards, different agencies in the government, that contract is not given to the same workers because they feel that they don't have the managerial capacity. They do not have the financial capacity to acquire the machine and keep it for the civic body. So in this process, they are not getting and they are remained as a laborer. So one thing we need to understand, in the all developed countries, the civilized, the sanitation job is highly respected, highly regarded and highly paid. So those people who are engaged in such type of activity, they are not looked down. They are treated on par with any other profession. In fact, the countries like Germany, the sanitation worker, what they earn more than the professor who is working in German university. When I visited, I interacted with them, and their social status, their economic status is something on par with others. But unfortunately, in this country, those people who are engaged in this activity, they are looked down. They are not given proper respect for the work, what they are doing. Everybody wants that work to be done by them. But after finishing the work, they will treat them like untouchables or whatever it is. So keeping these things in view, at Dickey as an organization, we thought that yes, this problem of scavengers who are dying and scavengers who are whose health is getting spoiled, because everybody knows that and under intoxication these people will do this work, and the average life of a scavenger is not more than 40 years, and the highest number of widows you will find in these families who are engaged in the scavenging activity. One is because of the poisonous gases every day they inhale, and another is the intoxication what they are going to have. It's a very cheap liquor they will consume right from the morning. So these two things are taking away the valuable lives of our citizens. So to stop all these things, as a Dickey, we thought, why don't we give the contractual opportunity to these people? So on behalf of Dickey, initially we approached the government of Telangana, because when there were in 2016, the heavy rains were there in the Hyderabad. Continuously for 3 days it rained. And with that, the lot of blockage of the drainage has taken place, and a lot of overflow of the water on the roads. And two people, while cleaning the manhole, they died on the spot. Then our Chief Minister KCR came, visited the site, and declared 5 lakh rupees compensation for them. And after that incident, we approached the Honorable CM. Sir, you have given 5 lakhs rupees for each of the deceased. It's a very good gesture what you have done. But this is not going to solve their family problem, because a member of a family died and he did not earn a lot of money for themselves, and they're all living in a very debaculated condition house, and this 5 lakhs is not going to support them in any way, or it may be useful for a year or two, but subsequently what this family can do. Then KCR interacted with us, then he asked a suggestion, what is your idea? Why, how do you want to support them? Then we said, why don't you give the contractual opportunity for the same families? Those people who are deceased families, If you give the contractual opportunity, then their life will be settled forever. Then it sounds good, the CM told, and what are the modalities, how you can prepare a tender, all those things have been discussed. But unfortunately, the tender is got some certain guidelines from the enforcement department and so many other parameters they need to take while preparing the tender. So exclusive reservation for a particular community or individuals cannot be taken out because of the transparency, law of transparency, so many other laws were there. So, but the government was wanted it to happen to them. Then he requested the Dickey to mentor and identify those people and mentor them. And they have taken out the tender of 70 machines. And we have identified certain people among this scavenging community as a potential people who can invest little bit amount as a margin money to procure the equipment. And we have Dickey has given them the guidance how to documentation support and to how to put the tender, electronic e-tender it was. So all that we have done from our own office, and we could able to grab 70 machines for these communities. And after getting the this thing, we got able to get the finance from SBI under Stand Up India initiative of Government of India, where they can get a 1 crore loan without any collateral security. So the SBI is kind enough to give the loan at 90% loan with a minimum 10% margin they have given. And we have bargained with the Tata Motors, and they were kind enough to give at a very discounted price of the vehicle. And Kamavida, who has supported us in preparing the tender as well as getting the vehicle fabricated, getting the machine on the chassis and the Tata chassis, and we could able to deliver on time. And since 3 years we are running this, and Hyderabad, we earned a very good name because the government of Telangana has appointed a third-party agency to assess the impact the project created, and they got a very good feedback that the citizen satisfaction level has increased, and we have formed one group management company to manage and assist all these 70 contractors in running efficiently the mission's operations. And every day preventive maintenance was there, and daily 500 running meter preventing maintenance we are doing. And since then, the number of complaints which used to be more than 3,000 has been reduced to 0 now in the past 3 years. That means there are no deaths for the past 3 years, and there are no complaints of sewerage blockage, sewer blockages. So this is the impact the project has created. And this matter we brought to the notice of the Honorable Prime Minister Office, and we wanted this to be replicated in the rest of the country. Then immediately Prime Minister Office has called Mr. Danakishore, IAS officer, who is responsible to execute this job. And they have taken the inputs from him, and he has given the presentation. In his presentation, he has narrated to all the Prime Minister Office officers, and also different municipal corporation commissioners and water boards, including the Delhi Jail Board. Then after seeing the presentation, the Delhi Jail Board has come forward and approached the Dickey to replicate the same model in Delhi. So we have interacted with the officers. They have inspected the Hyderabad. They studied the Hyderabad model. They have studied the administrative model, technical model, and the performance, what is happening, and the impact of the on the individuals. So this is a socio-economic initiative. So this is a very good model what they felt, and about the aggregator company and how the aggregator company is managing without any flaws in executing the contract. So after seeing that, they wanted to take forward further more step, and we should be thankful to Delhi Jail Board that for the first time in the Indian history, they have taken out the tender based on the Prevention of Manual Scavenging and Rehabilitation Act 2013. For the first time in Indian history, in tender they clearly mentioned the act, and they have prioritized the preference, like the first opportunity will be given to the deceased families of the sewer cleaning and the septic cleaning persons. The second opportunity will be given for the existing Safai Karmacharis and their dependent children. And the third preference will be given to the scheduled caste. Fourth preference will be given to the women. Like that, they have prioritized the tender conditions, and accordingly, they have taken out the tender, and we have identified 200 people. The tender was for 200, because generally in municipalities, they give 200 to one company, and for which they give a condition that it must be having 100 crore turnover, they must be having a 3 years experience, or their turnover must be this much, and similar project would have been executed. All that pre-qualification they keep. But in this particular time, there was no pre-qualification. The only qualification is that he must be a deceased family, and he must be from a existing Safai Karmachari family. He must be a scheduled caste person. Like that, the qualification they have mentioned in that. And Tiki handholded all the 200 people. We could have the partnership of the SBI there again under Stand Up India initiative, and we have filed the tender, and all the 200 tenders have been given to individuals. That means every individual is a contractor, and every contractor will have one who will be owning one vehicle, and he'll be assigned one particular area, designated area for the operations, and from there one driver, come operator, and two laborers will be engaged in this thing. In some of the missions, they themselves are working, and they have followed strictly the protocols required for while opening the manhole. What are the precautions to be taken out, and how they should wear the dresses and the gloves, gum boots, and also mask. So all the 200 vehicles with the 600 employees, they are on the streets with completely, they look like soldiers, like military soldiers. They look like a force. Suppose if all 600 people are gathered at one place, then they will be seen as a military force, something like that. So we have given the very good branding to them. We have given a branding of is the Safai soldier. He is a Safai soldier of Delhi Jail Board. So every day, we formed a management company, and through management company we give continuous training for the employees, and we will see that everybody wears the dress, mask, and everything every day since 2.5 years. That is also going on, and every day you find all the 600 people with the dresses. So the second success has been successfully executed in Delhi. Now, 3 days before, Delhi Jail Board has come out with another tender of 150 contractors, 300 machines to clean the septic. Because after introducing this system, there are no sewer deaths in Delhi for the past 2.5 years. And whereas there were deaths in the septic cleaning. So now the same model has been executed, tender is released, and the last date is the 1st September. So for that septic, so that means the septic deaths are also going to be controlled or stopped by this model. And on this model, somebody went earlier model, somebody went to court that this priority is not as per constitution, like that they went. But in Delhi High Court, they have given very clear judgment that if any law is there to stop this kind of initiative, it is not a good law, it is a bad law. So no court can stop this activity. Such kind of judgment, the two bench judgment of High Court, Delhi High Court has given the judgment. So that is the again great initiative taken by the Delhi Jail Board to fight in the court. Even I was called for a presentation to give before the Honorable Judge. I have given a presentation for 20 minutes, how the process is and how we are going to do that. The result is that today, those people particularly the deceased people who does not have a permanent house or a rented even house also. They used to stay on the encroached footpath with some hut. In the hut they were living. Dicky has identified them. Those people who does not have the PAN card as well as the Aadhaar card, we have made them to get it, and we filed the tender on their behalf, and today they are the income taxpayers. So this is the transformation taken place in the country. So just imagine 2 years back, they were on the streets, and today they have their own house. And right now they are living in their shifted to rented house, and they are paying the income tax. That is the change this project has brought. So overall, I can tell you one thing. This is the win-win project, win-win project. There is no loser in this project. By engaging 200 individual contractors, the economic activity has been spread to the masses. And every individual, being a owner, a contractor, he will take care of his vehicle properly, and he does the job in a very committed way. He will be doing the job, and the group management agency is there to support all of these people in maintaining the vehicle and preventing the losses or documentation, ESI, PF, all legal compliance, whatever the legal things they need to follow. We will be assisting them in the filing the GST and also in filing the income tax returns, and all these things. The Dicky plays a very prominent role. So and the officers also very happy, because they need not contact all the 200 people. If they contact one group management agency, the information is passed down to the respective persons. So that is another advantage. And many officers, they say, tell me, after introduction of this machines onto the streets, a lot of complaints have been reduced and our sugar levels are increased. And most of the politicians, they will be happy. The councillor and MLAs, they say, yes, because after introducing, we are not receiving any calls from the complaints from the people, because they are very happy. So many associations, individuals, they are very happy that the frequent blockage was there. Now it is not there. So by this impact, everybody, the banker is happy, is getting the EMIs on time. So everybody credit history has increased and their CIBIL score has increased. Now they can get further loans in their respective district. So
can we take one or two questions? And
yeah. Just so for a manufacturer, also it is good they have done some experiment and done a good thing. So like this, the win-win situation for all the people who are involved in this project, and I wish that this must be replicated at all the parts of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So just two questions and then we can proceed. Mr. Ashraful, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, sir. What is the contract period that Delhi Jal Board has finalized?
7 years is the contract period, and 5 years is the loan tenure.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And they got the subsidy also from Government of India. 25% subsidy they got.
For purchasing a vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Sujoy, would you like to ask?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Ravi Kumar. I think this is an extremely inspiring presentation to see. One question I just wanted to ask you. You mentioned that the cases of mortality and deaths in cleaning has decreased in both Hyderabad as well as in Delhi. So what in your view is the reason for this? Is it because the processes and the SOPs were not being followed earlier properly, or proper safety measures or training was not given? What has changed that people death cases have stopped in these two cases?
Yeah, this is a failure of the SOP and monitoring. There was no monitoring. Just like that, somebody gets a complaint and they will engage somebody who is damn Dick and Harry, who is on the streets, without any knowledge, for the sake of money, getting 100 rupees, 200 rupees. The people who has not done any cleaning activity earlier also, they will jump in. Because the necessity will make people to engage somebody who is not experienced. That's the reason why the casualty, when we probe the deceased family, that since how long they are doing this job and all, they say, no, 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 my husband was a laborer and somebody called him, so he accompanied somebody and he got expired. Like.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Malini Chari here.
Yes, sir.
Ravi Garu.
Sir.
So, with regard to continuation to the question of Mr. Sujoy, I think apart from SOP, your role as a capacity building intermediary and your role of enforcement of SOPs and enforcement of
Yes.
personal protective equipment, did it play an important role? Because that facilitation role and nudging role is equally important in our view.
Yes.
And can you speak a little bit of that?
Yeah, see, but adopting the safety methods, apart from the government officials, whatever they are enforcing, there is a resistance from the employees who are engaged in this activity, because they don't know, they just wear, they got used to work with the rubber slippers, and with bare foots they are. When we say that you wear a gumboots, he says, no, I'm not comfortable at all. And if you ask him to wear the gloves, and they said that grip is not coming to my hand because I'm wearing this. So if you put the helmet on head, sir, I'm getting the sweat like that. They'll take. If I ask them to put the mask, they say I'm getting breathlessness. So all this resistance from the employees itself, we are getting. So what we thought, yes, this has to go. This person has to get trained in a dress the whole day. So we have conducted continuously 1 week program, continuous training with Mr. Krishna used to give the training. So 1 week when continuously they started wearing the gumboots and gloves and the helmet, now they got used for it. Then afterwards we said we have incentive, we have given incentives for them. Suppose if every day who comes with the complete dress and whole day they remain in the dress and wearing the all these things, then we used to give them the around 2,000 rupees as extra bonus for them. Apart from the salary, for complying the safety measures, we started giving more money. So then they got used for it. Then subsequently, after 2 years, now we are imposing the fine. Because earlier in the stage, if I impose the fine, he is not in a mood to, he will resist and he will revolt against us. But when we have incentivized with them, they got used it. Now we are controlling them by punishing. We are giving punishment now, and they are accepting it. So if somebody is not wearing a proper helmet, suppose if the 3-member team is there and 1 member is not with the safety gadgets and the 2 members are, then these 2 members will inform us that this fellow is not wearing, and we punish 2,000 rupees to him and we'll give 1,000 rupees to this guy, and that's it. So that group, this thing will be improved, and we have a vigilance team also, and whoever is not in the uniform or not wearing gadgets will take a picture, and with that picture also we will impose the fine on the people. So with this we are able to get it adopted, because now they got adopted. Earlier, particularly in Delhi, when the summer was there, they used to complain, sir, with this I'm not able to work. I may be fainted because of the wearing mask, dress, so much of heat is there, like that. But now they got used to it.
Mr. Chari, I have one more question from Mr. Shashwat, then we can take any more if you have. Mr. Shashwat Naik, would you like to ask your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am. While opting for this Safai Karmi Suraksha challenge, one of the ULB is facing issue with disbursal of loan. They have identified some of the entrepreneurs, prospective entrepreneurs, but in most of the cases, informal sector people, they have a poor CIBIL score, or they do not have it on the first place. So banks are quite hesitant in disbursing the loan. How this can be resolved? Also, we looked at revolving fund, availability of revolving fund, but what we found, it's inadequate in most of the cases, and issuance of revolving fund is more or less on a government official's desk, and he's not sure about how it will be back to him again. So in most of the cases, he does not want to disburse any revolving fund. So what are the mechanisms that we can ensure for this, sir?
Yeah, actually, for this, Dicky has got a model. It's a very good model which is being executed successfully. What we have done is that we have opened a escrow account, and whatever the amount the contractor is going to generate, it will be deposited in the escrow account by the disbursing agency like municipal corporation or the water board. So whatever money earned by this contractor, the money will be deposited in the escrow account. In the escrow account, the banker will first discount his EMI, then the remaining balance will be transferred to the contractor. So in this way, the repayment period is very good. And also the group management company, whatever the expenses they are bearing, their money also they will get. So after remaining all the expenses are gone, whatever the remains are there, it will be given to the contractor. So this is a good model, successful model we have executed. And wherever you are finding it difficulty in the getting the finance, you can approach the Dicky, and we have MOUs with most of the banks. And there is a scheme called Stand Up India scheme. Through that, they can get a loan up to 1 crore without any collaterals. And if it is more than that, up to 15 crore, we have a IFCA venture capital fund.
One question from my side, sir, is
Dr. Malini, Pankaj this side, I have a question posted in the chat.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Ravi Kumarji, for this such an excellent, presentation, and it really touched my heart, first of all. And then I'm seeing, it's not just about the safety of the people, but it's about the dignity of the work. My question is that, you said that there has been a specific, movement for involving the people of, the deceased families. So just an idea, was there any kind of specific effort to, see the female members of the family to be part of this initiative? If yes, then any idea that how many of these, operators are there female? Because they might be, the wives or the daughters of the deceased, people who have been engaged earlier. So any idea on that, or any specific?
There are 44 females, because most of the deceased cases only either their wife or their mother we have given the opportunity. Because one of the rule what we kept among Dicky, that we must empower the woman, so that the amount which is generated out of the contract will be properly used by a woman in a good district. Even if they don't work, because the group management company will assist them to work. So all the 44 women we have given out of 200.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pankaj. So just one question from my side, and then I'll ask Mr. Chari to say something. The model that you have explained, sir, was slightly large in number, just 70 in Telangana, 200 in Delhi. So would a similar approach work for a city which has, say, 3 or 4 desludgers, a requirement for desludgers? Or would you suggest something else?
It can be done, because now I'm in talking with Noida. There they wanted to give for 30 people, and I am talking to Patna. There they wanted to give for only 20 people. And also we started taking over the machines already owned by the corporations, because some time back they purchased the machines and they are idle now. They are not in a position to use. And what we are doing is that we are taking some service contract with them. The machine already belongs to the corporation or the water board, and for that we are maintaining as a service. So over a period of time, whatever the amount he'll make, and he will become the owner of the vehicle after 5 years of running. then you effectively the machine which was abandoned can put into service, and with that he will also become the contractor.
Thank you. So, Prasachari, would you like to say something and also invite Mr. Krishna after, to share his experiences and models of mechanization?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Malini. And this is very, very important session for us. The point I just like to make, picking up from what Mr. Ravi Kumar has mentioned, Dr. Ravi Kumar, was it is not the technology per se. It is not just the mechanization per se. Right? Nowadays, if you have seen in the newspapers, there are multiple technologies have been introduced or being, sort of pushed into the market with robotics to much more IoT-based systems. But I think the point Dr. Ravi Kumar Nara was trying to make is not just the technology. Mechanization is super important, but mechanization along with the process improvement, contractual management improvement, collaboration, aggregation, and capacity building of various stakeholders, including desludgers to government officials. That ecosystem is very, very important, and that's what Dicky, under the leadership of Dr. Ravi Kumar, has actually led. Now, this collaboration of Dicky and Kamavida is actually the future for India, where they bring technology but also integrate with the overall process, facilitation with the banks, facilitation with the governments, facilitation with the family members and communities. But if I just superimpose a high-tech machine in a city corporation, and I am sorry to say I have traveled to a number of cities which they have financed the corporate social responsibility, companies have financed these high-tech machines, but they are all defunct because municipalities do not own up. So I think it's very, very important to appreciate this ecosystem development that Dicky is trying to create, and also bring specialists like Mr. Krishna, who is a CEO of Kamavida, who is going to speak to us. I think this combination is the way forward, is what I feel, Dr. Malini. With this, I would like to now invite Mr. Krishna, who is a CEO of Kamavida, who's done a yeoman service for the country in bringing mechanization in septage management, in municipal solid waste management, and in a number of other, including drain cleaning operations. These are very, very nasty, difficult things. Technologies cannot be imported and tried in India, but these technologies have to be adapted to our situations. And that's what is a biggest contribution. I would recommend him, Mr. Krishna, for Padma Shri right away. In fact, I don't know why it is delayed, because he has done a fantastic service for the country. With these few words, I would now invite Mr. Krishna to start his session.
So, Mr. Krishna, congratulations. We are all back along with Dr. Ravi. And
having worked with Dr. Ravi,
Ravi Garu, you need to take the responsibility of, recommending him.
30th is the last date for this year applications.
Yes, I am not joking. It is very, very important.
We'll do that.
It's a thankless job, but he is relentlessly pushing. Yes.
I have seen many manufacturers, but this man is something different. He is not only a manufacturer, he is a totally service oriented. And in fact, he motivated us to come into this line of activity.
Over to you, sir.
Over to you for your presentation. And I must say, your background looks like you're in a spaceship, so it goes with the conversation. So over to you.
Thank you so much for such polite words. I mean, it's overwhelming. Working with Mr. Nara has been absolutely a privilege. I think our working together goes back to about five years now, since Hyderabad. There are not too many people who would, get down to the actual working condition and work upward. And that's one thing about Mr. Nara. Me and Mr. Nara have walked the streets of Hyderabad and seen the gutters of Hyderabad and in Delhi and owned Delhi. So And the machines were designed keeping that in mind. And that I think is the wonderful thing. And hats off to Mr. Narra. Incredible energy, incredible zest to do the right thing. And I think if everybody had this, the answer would come by itself. I think the whole challenge, the whole thing has been pushed by Mr. Narra so genuinely that today we can talk about the fruits of the effort. Coming back to equipment, like many a times, all of you, including Dr. Chari, Mr. Chari and Dr. Malini and Mr. Narra mentioned.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you like us to, please let us know if you'd like us to put your PPT up. Whenever you want, we can have it up.
Yeah, you can, ma'am. It will at least keep my thought flow going. I have so much to say that I may get lost.
No, please, you please continue. I don't want to interrupt you. At any point you want, you let us know. We'll put it up.
Yeah, okay. What Mr. Narra said is perhaps so true, and how Mr. Chari had, summarized it. This is not a one solution answer across the board, because every ULB is unique in its way, its operation. Machines have to be chosen, not just bought arbitrarily. So it has to be a grounds up operation. And I mean, we are more than willing to come anywhere they want us to come and do this together. Whether order or no order is not the point. But the right solutions have to be drawn up. There are multiple types of machines, some too high-end, some too rudimentary, and therefore it's a man-machine combination that's going to make it work. And thereafter, like Mr. Narra rightly said, hand-holding, I mean, sewerage is very lethal, but it's not, and it's not forgiving. But to work in a municipal environment is equally lethal. And you need to understand the nuances of how to operate in their scheme of things, their compliances. After all, it is public money. So when a municipal officer puts his neck out and pays, he expects a lot of documentation, procedures, which by itself nobody can comply with, unless there is a hand-holding agency. Even if you give a couple of machines to a bunch of guys and leave them alone, the project will fail, because those people will not be able to manage the machine, its operation, and the ecosystem. So this combination of having an agency which can interface between the operator, get him funded, and run the municipal ecosystem and get your bills passed and get the payments, is a very, very important link in the entire jigsaw puzzle. Failing which, the overall effort will fail. When it's driven by a private entrepreneur who invests large sums of money, there is somebody who has an interest to do it. But when you talk about a model like what we've done in Delhi, you definitely have to have someone like Dicky to do this. So that's the first part of the solution. Secondly is to building the machine requirement grounds up, understanding what the requirements are, going to the field and identify. For example, in Delhi, the problem statement was, हमें ऐसा machine चाहिए which I can take into the gullies, which are not more than 10 feet wide. That was the problem statement by the then deputy chairman of Dicky, Jal Board, who said, I make rounds in my wards in my car, and he showed us the car. I don't remember the name now. It was a Toyota car, and he said, your machine cannot be bigger than this. That was a mandate we got, and Mr. Narra and I went into the streets of Delhi, and we designed the machine. Machine was put to a prototype test, and today we're talking about 200 machines working there. So, I mean, we are willing to come anywhere to any city, because there are, I mean, like many times we have said time and again that India does not lack any technology. Machines are available. We know what is required, how to make these machines. We can compete with the best in the world. But buying the right machine is very important. And there needs to be a long-termish kind of plan, because, it can't be changed every 3 to 4 years by the, administrators per se. So we need to have a long-termish plan. We need to understand the network, the open nalas network, and we need to know the UAV's plan to going to underground drainage or an FSTP model or whatever be it. And accordingly, we need to, kind of create a framework. The data about manual deaths, nobody can deny it. India loses one man cleaning a sewer every 5 days. This is an absolute fact. You can see it on the, on the website of NSKFDC. Talking about machines, there's a conventional belief that, I think we've imported the design or the thought from Europe, where water is available in plenty. So we have gone into this model called jetting, where you need drinking water to clean a sewer line, which is perhaps an expensive luxury for India, especially for smaller towns where water is difficult to, unless you're in Bengal or in Calcutta, where you dig the ground, water pops up. So if you want to really do drain cleaning, there are two types of drain cleaning. One is you clean a choke, which has got blocked. And the second is you remove the silt, which is inside the sewer line, which is called jetting. So if you can confine jetting to as a preventive maintenance program for removing silt, that's an ideal thing. And if you can use rodding to break chokes, that will be very cost effective. And that's a machine that we have given Dicky for Delhi. So you can take the machine into a gully, and if there's a choke, you can put down a rodding machine and completely de-choke a sewer line with no use of water. And if you want to de-silt that line, then you can use water. Today we can use, we can produce, jetting machines which can in fact use recycled water. These jetting pumps were earlier not forgiving, but now we have the technology which can use even recycled water. So if any of you have jetting machines which uses drinking water, we can upgrade it to even do, even be able to work with wastewater, which is of course treated, and all the, physical impurities removed. Ma'am, can you go to the next slide, please? There are also small cities which have open drains. So these are machines for open nala cleaning. They de-silt the nala and remove the silt so that the hydraulic load capacity is maintained and the flow is maintained. So these are a simple mechanical device for removing silt of an open nala. Ma'am. We've also seen large drains in big cities like in Pune or in Delhi. These drains are almost like a kind of a river. Now you can't go into these drains and remove the silt out easily. So we have an equipment which is called a crane, which can go up to about 20 odd meters and pick up silt from the bed of these nalas. So this is called typically a tipper body crane truck with a clamshell bucket for cleaning main open nalas. Because when the nalas get blocked, there's a back pressure and the sewers get blocked. So unless you clean the main highway, there's no point, trying to maintain flow in the lateral lines. So this is a machine for cleaning the trunk sewers or trunk lines. Yes, please. There's a smaller machine for cleaning of septic tanks, which is now getting more and more popular with the popularized version of the FSTP. So septic tanks are ideal to be cleaned. By these machines, there is no human contact. You can suck the sludge out, blow back the sludge, homogenize the slurry, and then, transport the entire thing without absolutely any contact with the human being. So this is a very popular machine for septic tank cleaning. This also now is made on small chassis for narrow lanes. We have sold them in hundreds to Orissa and to many places. Very, very popular machine for emptying septic tanks. The advantage here is the length you can convey is almost about 100 meters. Not depth. Depth is only about, say, 20 odd meters. But the conveyance length of these machines also almost 100 meters, because typically septic tanks are behind the house, sometimes difficult to access areas. These kind of machines have a powerful enough pump which can go and, to pick up the material from a septic tank almost 100 meters away. Yes, ma'am. These are conventional jetting machines, typically used for de-choking and de-silting sewer lines. They are built on trucks using the power of the truck itself, and they use a PTO to drive the, all the, units like a jetting pump or a hydraulic pump. They're extremely mobile and portable, so they can go from place to place using, of course, fresh water for jetting. Yes, ma'am. These are slightly larger machines, suction cum jetting machines. Half the tank is for suction, the other half is for jetting. It can do both, can do suction as well as jetting. Typically, it can pick up, it can empty your manhole and they are surcharged so that we're able to access the sewer line for inserting the hose. Yes, ma'am. This is the machine that we made for Dicky, specifically for Delhi Jal Board. In fact, we were lucky to work with the Jal Board officials and with Dicky and to design this machine, which got us the award from the Prime Minister's Office for innovation. It's a mechanical grab which can enable you empty a charged sewer, so a charged manhole, and remove the silt and pick it up mechanically, and then you can do either rodding or jetting to keep the silt maintained. I mean, to keep the sewer line flowing. Yes, ma'am. They are the same version of larger tanks and smaller tanks, multiple sizes depending on whether the sewer line in the main road, so we can have a larger tank. If it's in a gully, then we have to have a smaller tank. These are all multiple combinations. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, these are of course for cleaning a man entry sewers, large sewers which are in Bombay. I've seen sewers as large as say 20 feet diameter. Now you can't clean them with jetting operations because nothing will happen there. The sewers are very large. These are trunk sewers. Now there you have to have man entry, but of course with all the precautions and the PPEs and of course the wader suits and harnesses. So these convey the silt out of the sewer line using what is called pneumatic conveyance. So this can transport silt from inside the line to almost 30-40 meters high. So basically, the biggest problem in sewers is the silt. So when silt forms inside, the load carrying capacity of the sewerage network starts reducing, and that's when choking happens. In fact, in most foreign countries, they don't do de-choking ever because lines don't get choked. They do desilting periodically to avoid chokes from being formed. Whereas in India, we still use machines for de-choking sewer lines, which means we are saying that a sewer line will choke and we'll try and break the choke. That, I mean, the premise itself is wrong. Going further, the ULB must come up with an action plan to avoid choking itself. And that can be done by periodic cleaning or desilting. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, this is a recycler. This is a new age machine which can pick up the wastewater from a surcharged manhole, use the same water for jetting. So you don't use any water from the municipality at all. The first load is perhaps the municipal water. Then you come, you suck up the silt and the wastewater from the manhole. You separate the waste from the water, use that water for jetting again. So you can stand in a particular place and do desilting for almost 4 to 5 hours. Failing which, in the old method, either the freshwater tank will get empty or the wastewater tank will get filled up. So you stop work and go to either refill or go to either empty. Whereas in this kind of machine, you can work for longer durations. So you save on operating costs, you save on fuel, you save on water. And this is the technology going forward for cleaning large sewer lines. Yes, please. We are available across India. We can provide support in terms of, designing a machine or, choosing the right machine. We can do hand-holding in terms of training. We also do operation and maintenance. And we can also do the Dicky model, which is, I think, the best model. In fact, internationally, very few ULBs buy machines. These functions are basically outsourced. So this will be ideal for this model to work in India, where the underprivileged are given an opportunity. And all this, talk about, we must respect them and do all this for the Safai Karamchari. It's all humbug unless you are able to empower them and make them do the job with the machine. Feeling it is all just singing a song for them is not going to make any difference in life. But I saw a picture where it went viral. Somebody was throwing flowers on that poor Safai Karamchari. The flowers were lying in the road, which he then jhadu maroed and picked up himself. So these are all extremely, valueless tributes. The best way to give him tribute or respect his job is to mechanize it and make sure he's able to carry out his job with absolute ease and dignity. And that is the end of the story.
Thank you so much,
Malini.
Mr. Krishna.
I have a small analogy to share. Like you see my head, I have not too much hair right now, but I was also once upon a time young, and I used to cut my hair in my early days in Calcutta, and I used to go and sit under a tree, and that fellow used to cut my hair. He was called a Nai. Now when you have to cut your hair, you go to an AC room with music and a reclining seat, but the scissor and that comb is still the same. That fellow was called a Nai. This fellow is called a hairstylist. He is paid 500 rupees. That fellow got 25 rupees. Job remaining the same. When you change the environment, change the process, a lot happens. And the same jobs get a lot of dignity. And that I think it's high time we did that.
Yes, absolutely spot on, Mr. Krishna. Totally with you there. And I think it'll also be interesting, Mr. Krishna, if you could speak a little bit about the costings of the models that you shared. And also if there is, Ravi Garu mentioned about retrofitting or, some of the vehicles that municipalities might have and might not be functioning too well. What is the process for any municipality to reach out to you, and how does that work?
We do this very often, ma'am. In fact, we are called over to kind of inspect the machine, and a thumb rule, maybe at half the cost of the capex, you can do a retrofitting, and we can give you enhanced guarantee for that, and perhaps even take up the operation and maintenance, and give it to someone like Dicky to run or whatever. So this is depending on case to case, but as a general thumb rule, a simple suction machine should cost about 7-8 lakhs. Plus chassis, and a high-end machine can cost up to 2 crores. It all depends on what you want to do.
Oh. Birijaji, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. A very good presentation. My question was like a Cambi recycler on SCB, Joe, what we saw in the presentation. So it's really good model because you the same water is being used for the cleaning. So, so anywhere in India it is being used. Any ULB is using it?
Many, ma'am. Many. Pune, Bombay, Delhi has about 8. Bangalore has a machine. There are many machines working in India, ma'am. But you must have adequate work to deploy it. For a small ULB, it may not be worth it, but for a large municipal corporation, definitely makes a lot of sense.
Wonderful, wonderful work, Krishnaji. Thank you so much for.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I'm very wary of calling in Professor Chari because this is his favorite topic. He won't stop asking. So before I hand it over, if there are any other questions.
Can I come in, Professor Malini?
Please, sir, go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Krishna, once again, fantastic. Just wanting to know that if all these technologies are available in India and you have really pioneered it, thanks for that, why are people still dying every 5 days in India?
Well, like I told you, this is not a, one solution fits all. ULBs are absolutely capex starved. ULBs have no money to invest in capital equipment. So if we can convert the entire model into an OPEX model, perhaps then they can. That's what Mr. Narra has done. When you say 200 machines have been deployed in Delhi Jal Board, who has paid for it? Not Delhi Jal Board. Mr. Narra and the banks have organized money and made the machines available through a bunch of, Safai Karamcharis. They have actually got in the capex and built capacity for the ULB. Now, ULB is paying them on running meters based on an SLA. So this is the only way in the Indian municipalities can add to their, machine fleet. If not, you have to wait for your budgets to come once a year, which is normally for half a machine.
Then the next question will be to Mr. Ravi Kumar Narra. Sir, if you are there and you're present, why is it that people are still dying every 5 days? Are there capacity constraints to reach out?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. What I really meant was, for example, the thumb rule in the world, from what I understand, is about 15,000 people to one machine. The per capita machine ratio to a city to a deployment of machine. Now, even if I say India is a poor country, you take the logic to 1 lakh to one machine. Now I live in Pune. Pune has a population of 40 lakhs. So rightfully speaking, I must have 40 machines deployed.
Correct.
I have maybe 12. And half of them are maybe 10 years old. So this gap, who will fill? There's a man willing to jump inside and he will jump inside.
I think that's a very important question, and we should also take everybody's views on that. Thank you, Mr. Krishna, for your perspective. I'm going to ask Dr. Ravi and Mr. Chari also to share their perspective on the same question. Ravi, yeah.
Madam, generally what happens when the septic, most of the deaths are reported in the septic cleaning, not in the sewer cleaning. And sewer, because that's not so dangerous like septic. So to avoid this, what the government of Delhi has done, that people are engaging the private individuals who are not authorized. So when the septic tank is filled, then they will call some private operators to clean the septic tank. So by this, what is happening? They are doing in a they are doing it in a very haphazard manner and without having any equipment at all with them. They have one tractor mounted tank and they will have one suction pump, and they don't know how to open the manhole septic tank hole opening, and just like that they open the cover. And once if they open the cover, the lot of poisonous gas which is stored since long time will erupt like anything. It's like very fast it will come. So that they will consume and they are dying. So for that reason, what government has done is that nobody should go, nobody should call unauthorized people. They are going to give one toll-free number to them. And all the septic cleaning is done free of cost. So because once if it is a free of cost, every citizen would like to approach the government for cleaning, and they are developing a app. Already Pune in one company is doing that. They call it as a honeysucker. The app name is honeysucker. So like that honeysucker app, you can book the septic tank and they will give you what time they are going to come, and you can track the vehicle when it is coming and how it is coming, and after that where it is disposing. That is also very important subject, because after sucking the full material from the septic tank, they will go and dump in some nearby nalas or rivers or the waterbed area wherever it is water is stagnated. So they are taking one for lifting the material from septic tank and dumping at nearby places, which is contaminating the water. So for that, the government has designated the STPs, what they have, and whatever the septic cleaning is there, it will be disposed of in a very good way. By this way, they can stop the contamination of the other areas.
Thank you, sir. Professor Chari, who is accountable for the deaths? Can we arrest the commission?
Yeah, I think I just like to add one or two points, which is a very practical issue, which all of us should need to attend to, which is the question that Mr. Sujay asked: why there is mortality and morbidity in the system, despite having this technologies, mechanization. So just to add to what Mr. Ravi said, sewerage system, I go back to my first session. Sewerage system is a public service. It is at least perceived as a public service. So the water boards, Delhi Jal boards, Hyderabad Water Board, or a couple of Ahmedabad municipal corporations, they invest time, resources, and mechanization and standard operating practices and accountability of the concerned engineer when it comes to sewer systems. That standard operating practices and accountability were missing in the past, but now, because of the media attention, because of the strengthening of the Prevention of Manual Scavenging Act, at least the attention that has caught from Ministry of Social Justice, and a number of NGO communities have pushed it. There is a greater realization that we need to mechanize, we need to have good SOPs, we need to have good PPEs as far as the sewerage system is concerned. Unfortunately, non-sewer sanitation, on-site sanitation, that's where most of the deaths are happening, and that's what Mr. Ravi was talking, absolutely correct, is completely unregulated even as I speak. Mr. Ravi is very, very optimistic about the efforts, but the Safai Mitra Challenge initiative is a right step in that direction. But right now, Safai Mitra Challenge is for about 200 plus cities in the country. And we have 4,000 plus, 4,042 municipalities in the country, and about census towns, 7,000 plus. So we have now moving towards not only mechanization, but we are also creating this ecosystem of making the district collector accountable for such hazardous activities. The Sanitation Responsibility Unit, SRU, which every state has to be introduced, is headed by the district collector, and the Emergency Response Sanitation Unit. There is authority and then there is a unit. The responsible sanitation, the district collector is an authority. Under him or her, Emergency Response Sanitation Unit has to be established. This is not only for sewer system, this is also applicable for non-sewer system, which is completely unregulated in our country. Now, this is a role of municipality. For example, if I have a hotel or a hospital or a 5-star facility, I hire any unregulated desludger, and that unregulated desludger hires another unregulated contract employee, and they get into the system, and then there are mortality and morbidity issues. The contracts are weak. The system is not completely regulated. So I think we are moving in that direction, but I see that in the next 3 to 5 years, I see a lot of traction coming in. When district collectors are made accountable for this, I hope things will improve. So the key intervention that all of us in this group has to do is ensure that every state institute, Sanitation Responsible Authority, Emergency Sanitation Response Unit, and very, very importantly at a ULB level, regulate and license all the unregulated private desludging operations. Dr. Malini, over to you.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I think the question also that we had in the poll, perhaps you were not there, was how many people have been held accountable? And the answer right now is 0. Also, Mahua has issued this advisory for establishment of emergency response sanitation unit in 2019, and many states, districts don't have it. So I think this is also a point for all the colleagues here to look at and see how this can be made operational. We do have questions from 3 more participants, after which we would have to wrap up the session. We have Mr. Pankaj, Mr. Maharishi, and Ms. Hema. Pankaj, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Malini. I have 2 questions. One is just in continuation, because we are already discussing this issue, is Professor Chari, one part is definitely, making people responsible. But I would definitely like to go one step back and then see that, still people do not consider deaths in sewer as, part of the, manual scavenging, because we have had recent example in the Lok Sabha when the states have not, put a kind of indication that how many deaths have happened, but there has been a media, reporting saying that X many people, 463 number is there. So my concern is you can make people responsible only if you have the clarity of the definition. If that people are actually dying in the sewer, that is as bad as, the people dying because of the manual scavenging. So what is happening on that front? Number one question. Second is to Mr. Manohara for a very interesting presentation. Again, I would like to raise one specific point about the operation maintenance aspect of these vehicles, because, our municipalities are very good in procuring vehicles, procuring, new aspect, procuring the new technologies, but after 5 years or 4 years, that becomes obsolete, and then the vehicle also becomes obsolete. So what are those issues which you feel are important for operation maintenance? Because if I buy a truck, let's say for my personal use, it will go for 15 years or 20 years. But after 5 years, people find it in ULBs or maybe in municipal corporations use this because the operation maintenance is not proper. So what can be put in place to ensure, number one, that operation maintenance is proper? Second is there is a kind of retrofitting within the vehicle itself if there is a technology upgradation. So are there any technologies for that or systems for that? I would like to learn. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, should I?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Krishna.
A very valid point, sir. In fact, if you go back to the World Bank funding, there is a mandate with every fund which says that the O&M should be given to the OEM manufacturer. Only then the capex is optimized and used well, and if not downtime, it's a waste of time buying something. So it's a very valid point, and I think going forward nowadays municipalities have learned this trick, and they hold the manufacturer accountable for operating and maintaining the business. I mean the machine with some SLAs for 5 to 8 years. So that's becoming in vogue, and I think going forward that will become a mandatory. Requirement every tender. But there again, the problem is, of course, when you work with a big municipality like say GHMC or Delhi Jal Board, perhaps they are cash rich and they can pay bills on time. But for every manufacturer to put up people and run a machine and not get paid on time is another big constraint. And I don't know who can raise this point to whom. And ULB's payment record with contractors also is a very big missing link in this whole ecosystem. I think like every supplier is responsible and pays liquidated damages for delayed supplies. He has to pay so many kind of penalties for delaying a supply. There must be a vice versa rule for municipalities not paying contractors on time. Only then you'll have people coming into the space. Most of them exit.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Professor Chari.
Yeah. So on the first point, Mr. Pankaj, see, I agree with you. The Act says differentiates manual scavenging and hazardous cleaning. So this comes under hazardous cleaning, not definition wise, it is not considered as a manual scavenging. Though Ministry of Social Justice has come up with a revised act, which has not approved yet by the parliament level, but those definitional changes are being discussed at length. There are very prominent NGOs and civil society organizations are pushing for that. But right now, your point is right. There is a difference between hazardous cleaning and manual scavenging. And this is nothing but hazardous cleaning is nothing but manual scavenging. But legally, there are subtle differences. I am not an expert in it, but that's how it is interpreted.
No, it's very simple to clarify, sir. When you carry human defecation in your head, which is not decomposed, that is called manual scavenging. And therefore, obviously, no one does that nowadays. So there are no deaths. Right. But like you rightly said, hazardous cleaning is entering a septic tank or a sewer line, which is where deaths happen. The MS Act covers both, but in 2 different chapters. So you can take refuge under the fact that no one died under manual scavenging, but you definitely die under hazardous cleaning.
I have one question to Mr. Krishna, Dr. Malini, just a very quick one, 20 seconds. So, Mr. Krishna, this whole activity, we have a database of almost 500 desludgers in some of the states that we work. Now, they don't buy new vehicles. They are sold, resold. At least when they buy for 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs because it's depreciated endlessly. So do you have any buyback arrangement where, like Amazon or any other product, when a particular product get depreciated, you buy that and then you give them a little bit of compensation and then give them a fresh one, a new one, of course.
If you say so, we will do it, sir. I think it's a move in the right direction. I think I understand what you're saying. People try to use very old technology pumps that don't pick up sludge, only water it picks up.
Exactly.
They, pass it off as a desludging machine. So
Yeah.
that needs to be changed. So I mean, we can do this.
We can work around this. Thank you
Sure,
so
sir.
much.
So one last point, sir. There are certain locality or geographies within the every ULB that is not a responsibility of the ULB. For example, the railways don't come under the ULB. A private property of Mr. Chadi's house, a bungalow with a septic tank, will not be the ULB's job to go and clean. So when Mr. Chadi decides to clean a septic tank, he may not know of the MS Act at all. He is a normal citizen. So he will ask his watchman, Bhaiya, aisa koi aadmi milega kya? And the watchman will go and tell his friend. And this is how the word of mouth spreads. And some poor guy who is actually waiting for his daily labor in that market. Every morning they sit there waiting for someone to call them. That fellow will go and clean the septic tank. And when he dies, nobody even knows about it. Because
Absolutely
there is no contract with Mr. Chari and this gentleman. I'm sorry, this is a wrong example. But this gentleman was called this fellow from the nearest labor market, has no written contract. If something happens, nobody is kind of blamed. But the MS Act very clearly says that the person employing him will be charged by this law, and it's a non-bailable punishable offense.
So that's so well said. Actually, the Safai Mitra challenge, whatever initiated by Mahua with the support of CPHEO, is actually breaking these issues where every ULB is now promoting to at the citizen level that the responsibility is not just on the ULB but also on the citizen. And this is just a beginning. Massive campaigns are happening and they are encouraging citizens to dial 14420 to get the authorized desludging service by the municipality. So Sibyl, please share all the collaterals as well as the guidelines that we have prepared and through the Government of India's campaign with the group. Somebody may benefit and they can in turn pass on to all the municipalities. Over to you, Dr. Manli.
There were two questions earlier. One was Mr. Maharshi. Would you like to ask your question? Dr. Hema had raised her hand and then she put it down. So.
Ma'am, actually, my point was for the O&M. That was very well covered in the Chari sir's point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hema ji, would you like to ask your question or is it answered already?
I think Professor Chari has covered most of the points, like create the initiative. Ravi sir and Krishna sir really appreciate that. And basically, I mean, in spite of having all the, the same reiterating the fact that in spite of having all the legislation and as well as the guidelines being issued by MAOA and CPO, still, there's a huge number of mortalities and many are unreported. So basically, the ULBs have a greater role to play, how to implement all these guidelines and mechanize, have the mechanization of all these manual systems and have a greater accountability. So, with the legislation and now the amendment has also come off. So we hope the system should improve and this kind of unfortunate incident should not happen. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for summarizing it so well, Hemaji. And this is a topic and an area where all of us feel extremely sensitive about. And I think the commitment amongst this group is also extremely high. And we look forward to very strong initiatives being implemented by all of us together in our respective geographies. So please join me in thanking Dr. Ravi and Mr. Krishna. Session. Thank you for this stellar session, really thought-provoking. Both of you, we greatly appreciate your joining us. Sir.
Thank you so very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you.
Thank you very much.